friendly neighborhood nerds? This is Judah Rad, Robo Strange, and Respawn. Holy mackerel. This guest rules. Television and comic book writer Ryan Parrott, known for, among other things, some awesome Power Rangers comics, is here to tell us about the upcoming Rogue Sun, a new superhero series written by Ryan, illustrated by Abel, and Chris O'Halloran. It'll be spinning out of the events of Supermassive and will drop on February 23rd. We're very happy to have you, Ryan. Thank you so much for being here. How are things?
Things are good. Thanks for having me, man.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds like it. Yeah.
Cool. Sweet mic, actually, and the sound. Are you a radio DJ also?
No, I was, when I first started doing Power Rangers, I worked with these guys, the Ranger Danger podcast, and they were like really frustrated with my sound, so they used some of their money and shipped me a mic from Australia. So
nice.
this is my baby.
That's actually what we were going to call ourselves before we stuck with IFLC, was Ranger Danger. So yeah.
That'd have been a nice little like Jets and the Sharks battle there. That'd have been fun. Yeah.
I'm gonna pretend not to be angry that Ree has never sent me a mic from Australia, but I'm gonna try to be professional and we'll press on.
Worst Australian friend ever.
Okay, so back to comic books. Having read the first couple issues of Rogue Sun, it looks like you've taken like the Spider-Man concept and inverted some of the elements there. Like, for example, like instead of Peter Parker, our hero is actually the bully, Flash Thompson, if you will, right? Instead of lionizing his deceased elder family member, he actually hates him. Like, is this on purpose? Were you trying to like flip some of this stuff on its head?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I think that's very astute, because I've said this in all my interviews, but I'll say it here just because it's the easiest thing you said, which is when you meet Dylan at the beginning, he's pushing a kid in a locker, right? And 90% of, not 90, but most superhero stories follow the kid and it's in the locker. And I wanted to follow the kid on the outside of the locker, because I just thought there was something interesting about. I really like. I'm gonna be on. Can we swear on this? No, yes, no.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Like, he's an asshole. I wrote, like, he's not a nice person, but I like that. Like, my favorite movies are like Nightcrawler and Michael Clayton and all that stuff. And I like characters that are complicated and don't make the right decision. And I just thought it would be so, when you're doing a new superhero book, I mean, if you want to go read a story about, like Peter Parker, you can go read that. There's a lot of options out there. So I was like, what not necessarily a new take, but what's a take that I feel like I can talk about in a different way? And I actually never thought about what you said about the concept of the deceased parent being the thing that always drives the person, and this is the one that is the exact opposite. He hates the person. I hadn't even realized that I did that, but now I'm going to take total credit for that, so thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, when it comes to creating astute questions, I'm actually kind of known for that, so
and how humble you are. I can see both of those things.
I tried to keep it down, but I couldn't. Sorry.
Robo.
Judah wrote that question. All right, good.
You didn't have to do that. Hey, so speaking of Michael Clayton and Nightcrawler, this isn't the question I wrote, by the way. I'm just curious. Is this going to be more of a Nightcrawler who just stays a piece of shit, or is it going to be more of a Michael Clayton who becomes sort of like almost kind of a good guy?
I like this. You guys are good. These are really good questions. Yes, I think it'll probably be more on the Michael Clayton of it all, because I think that's what's interesting about a character like that is, can you take a kid, because when you meet him and get to know him, I mean, it's obvious why he sort of became the kid he did. His dad left him when he was 2. He hasn't really had a father figure in his life. He sort of had to become a bit of a survivor. And when you do that, you tend to be a little bit more of like, what benefits me, and be more selfish. And I think as he taking on a superhero mantle and trying to, win his father's approval, and even if he doesn't admit to wanting that, wanting to try and do that and forcing himself to do good deeds, I've always thought, well, isn't that interesting? If you force someone to do good deeds, can they become a good person? And I think that's something that it will be interesting to see, because I do think he's going to make a lot of terrible mistakes and resort back to being the guy that he is instinctually. But it'll also be interesting to see, the farther he goes, will he start to evolve and stuff. But yeah, I don't want to make him I don't think I want to make him Lou. Was it his name in the Lou? Whatever. Yeah, I don't think I want to do that from Nightcrawler too much. That guy, I love that character. I think he's amazing. But I think people would be like, 4 issues of this, I'm out.
that movie made me feel filthy.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Sure.
So good.
So I'm going to ask what I think is on everyone's mind, because I talked to everyone actually. To what extent is Rogue Sun and Radiant Black from Kyle Higgins going to be intertwined? I know I know you two are buds, and you both worked on Power Rangers. You both have recently created superheroes for Image, and they're going to be together in Supermassive. So can we expect? I'll tell you what it feels like to me. It feels like the beginnings of what will eventually be like an imprint, like Top Cow. Is that what's going to happen, or what do you think?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I talk to him every day. Like he lives down the street from me, so that's helpful. We go to football games together and stuff like that. That's where it's all
Cute.
started. Yeah,
Awesome.
we're so broy. It's lovely.
I love it.
But yeah, I think the fun thing about working. This is why we were so excited about doing the crossover of it all. Was like, I can just text him in the morning and be like, hey, I've got a problem with the scene. I need something here. Can I use this thing that you dropped in issue 4? And he's like, well, actually, I'm doing this in issue 8 or whatever. We'll do that kind of stuff. So like when it comes to being crossovers and like interconnectedness, I think that's the fun of, we can just kind of reach out to each other whenever we want to. And if there's something that we think is fun, we'll do that. When it comes to like running into each other all the time, I don't know. He has his stories and I have my story that I want to tell, but we know we've already talked about like the idea of like, I always loved when like like Lex Luthor would show up in Gotham and deal with Batman for a little while and not become Batman, but but actually like deal with him. So like I think that'll be fun. Like if there's a villain that I think is in his world that I would love to play with, I was like, yeah, but let me bring him over here and vice versa. I think we have that level of creative freedom which we can use. And I think the goal is to be the massive verse, as what people are calling it. Like I like the idea of it all sort of crossing over and being organic and additive to one another, and hopefully and we'll see who else from the Image universe eventually pops in there. That would be really, if the other people felt that we were worthy of hanging out with, that would be really cool.
Ooh, spicy,
like a Justice League Avengers Unity type thing. Maybe,
who knows?
Anything's possible. Well, since we're talking about cool creators, Abel and Chris O'Halloran have really knocked it out of the park here. So 2-part question for you. How did you describe Rogue Sun to Abel in the early stages, and how did you feel when you saw those first character designs come back?
Oh man. Okay. Well, Abel is awesome. I was a little nervous about making my own book because I was like, I don't have the artist. And Kyle was like, don't worry, I got you. I was like, really? He's like, I got this guy. Let me show you. He sent me over his pages and I was like, this guy is he available? Like, that's crazy. No one snatched this guy up. Yeah. Because he's got like a Sean Murphy, like Dan Mora kind of vibe, which I love those guys. So I was like, immediately, let's do this. And so
such a good description. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a even just the way he composes a frame. I'm like, yeah, there's very Sean Murphy kind of things, which I'm a huge fan of. So I love that.
Nice.
And he's just a wonderful person to work with. Like he's the most accommodating. Like I am not as good an artist and I don't know how to articulate my stuff into covers and stuff. And he has to deal with all that. So I feel very sorry for him, but we do our best. But he did such a wonderful job. I mean, when I pitched him, because I wrote up the outline of the first 6 issues and I handed it to him and I was like, so this is the project. And he was like, I'm in. And he's like, so what's Rogue Sun look like? And I'm like, that's a really good question. And I was like, I think maybe he's a knight that's on fire. And he's like, yeah. And so he sent me one drawing, and that drawing is the design that you guys saw. Like there was that's never happened to me. It will never happen to me again. And it was that quick. And I think I was like, can you turn up the fire 40%? He's like, yeah. And so we got the fire to pull out the seams. That was it. And so it was, I mean, when you can find an artist that can make the thing in your head better than it ever was, like the weird nebulous idea that you had, and make it and externalize it. I mean, that's a gift. And I am very lucky to work with him. And with Chris, even more so. Like I actually believe really strongly. I don't think I realized this until I actually had to find a colorist myself, which is, man, a colorist is the tone of your book in the same way that music sets the tone in a movie.
Like 50%.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The art's there. The words are helpful. But the coloring, like there's 3 things that he does that I think are incredible. He uses color to focus the eye. I don't know if you noticed in like one of the early pages when Dylan and Byron are walking through one of the hallways, they're in color, but everybody around them is in like a soft like yellow. And I was like, when I saw it the first time, I was like, oh, it automatically. Otherwise it would be flat and you wouldn't know where to look. And I love that I know a lot of colorists do that, but I'd never noticed that. And he does that. He does a thing in one of the issues where Dylan is like kind of lost his temper and he's beating up the shit out. Sorry. He's just beating up this, this bad guy. And what I love is when I turn the page, he did all of the panels in complete yellow to show that the flame had sort of like taken over and there was another color, and like that's showing emotion in the coloring, and like he does stuff like that for like little subtle things, and I was just like, dude, that's so cool. Like that's not, I didn't write that in. That's just Chris like reading it and then going, how can I use my colors to tell an emotional story and to convey that? And like that is a gift. That's like riffing with like a good band. That's like, you know, like it's like everybody's adding in. I just think I could talk about that for hours, just because it made me realize how much credit I get as a writer that I don't deserve, because all these other people just do these invisible things that are just that the art that I never realized before. So
amen. Well said.
That's super dope. You know, we asked that question a lot, and I would say most, if not every time, it's like that. I just want one person to come on and be like, yeah, it was really hard. The first couple images they gave me sucked. It was like pulling teeth, but we got the book out.
I'll be honest, that happens with other things, but I've had that happen. Like there's been times in Power Rangers where I was like, we're on version 7 of this thing, and we're still not there. And that's on me. That's sometimes, but that's not on the artist. That's on me sometimes too, not being able to articulate what I think. And I'm like, it's like literally saying, can you make it better? You know, like
that's right.
I hear you, but,
I've heard the same kind of like complaints from like tattoo artists. You know, when you come in, you're like, I want a thing, like it's cool, right? Like a
I need you to read my mind.
Read it. It's right there, man.
But speaking of Power Rangers, so number 15 came out. Eltarian Warriors in full swing. Epic storyline so far. You've added a lot of interesting depth to some of my childhood classic favorites like Zordon, Lord Zed. Their relationship to each other and Zardos actually kind of made me think of Rogue Sun a little bit, right? It's sort of like a difficult family dynamic. Would you say there's like a family theme that you take a particular interest in?
Well, I mean, I could, if you want the brutal, honest answer, I literally just stole Othello. Like that's what I did for Zardos, Zordon, and Zed. Zed is Othello, Zordon is Cassio, and Zardos is Iago. It's my favorite. It's my favorite play. Yeah. Okay. So if you watch that story, it's very simple. It's like Zed chose Zordon over Zardos, and that was the moment he was like, I'm taking you down. And like that's that thing that I think I've always loved, that concept that the people that you love the most are the ones that know how to hurt you the most. Like we all, like, I don't know if everybody, I'm married, my wife could say 3 words and destroy me if she ever wanted to, but thankfully she's sweet enough not to do that. But like what's one so far,
your comic sucks, right?
Exactly. You know, yeah, she would just destroy me with my comic works. Yeah, she heard me from the other room, by the way. But I always thought that's what I like so much about Zardos, is like there's something really cool about that idea that, like, I think if Zed had chosen him and had faith in him the same way that he had in Zordon, he would have been his greatest champion. He would have been there with him. He would have been, you know, there with him. He would have been what's sorry, I was gonna make a Gargoyles reference. I'd be like Xanatos as to his his assistant. You know, like I always loved that guy. But like that's what I thought would be really cool. So when he turns on him, I love that Zardos was like, I'm gonna destroy you, and I'm in a weird way. I like that he was like, I'm gonna destroy you and then become what you were, which is like the weirdest compliment of like, I'm still going to follow in your footsteps. Anyways, that was the way I was thinking about those characters. So I think there's probably definitely some vibes in the idea of like the person you love is also the person that you hate kind of thing. I think those are fun stories.
Well, I think it's clear that I'm due for another reading of Othello. So yeah, I gotta brush up on my Othello.
We're getting real serious here. So I'm going to ask the most important question of this interview, I think, which is, who is your favorite Power Ranger?
Oh man.
And why is it?
So here's the problem with answering that. I know them now and they know me. And if they hear this and I go into a like Austin's gonna walk over and be like, so you like David Yost more than me, huh?
Nice.
Yeah, all my children. I love them equally.
I will say this. That's a really good question. Jason was the one that I grew up on. Like Jason's the one when you was a kid, I was like, I want to be Jason. And I feel like if you were like the right age and you started from the beginning of the show, Jason was always your favorite. I think if you came in after Tommy was on the team, Tommy becomes your favorite. But I think the person I was the most one, I'm literally like hedging all my bets here, by the way. I think if you had to identify, I think I was closest to like Billy. Like that was the guy that I was like, nice. I'd probably most likely that. I wore overalls, so like that's me. You know, but
so I'm there from the beginning. Day one, Tommy.
Tommy.
The whole Green Ranger, White Ranger arc just blew my mind. I remember like on the edge of my seat, and to this day, I remember mind fucking blown when the White Ranger.
I stayed loyal. I stayed loyal to Jason. Tommy showed up, and I saw all my friends peel off to Tommy, and I was like, no, Jason, Tyrannosaurus. And
Yeah.
So
I have a
when the
feasible-
White Ranger showed up, that didn't affect you. That didn't like.
I didn't want to like him. I had a bias that was extended beyond his quality. I was like, no, my favorite is Jason, and it stays Jason.
I mean, it's kind of why in some ways we made the Omega Rangers, because we were like, that's not the way Jason goes out. Like, I know he comes back and is in many different iterations, but like, no, I was like, that's not the way he's going to go out. We're going to use him and play that story out. So I'm in the same boat. Like Jason I got to meet Austin at a convention, and and I asked him if he'd read any Go-Go, and he's like, no. And I got to pitch him the story of like, why Jason picked up martial arts and his relationship with his father. And Austin was like, this is all like actually true. And so I gave him a copy of the first run of Go-Go, and he got to read it right in front of me. And he was like, this is really great, man. I love all this. And I was like, oh, okay.
So awesome.
I'm not going to punch me.
That's dope.
That's super cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think Robo, we met Jason David Frank at Hawaii Con, right?
Sure did. Yeah.
Cool guy. Super cool guy.
He's the only one I've met David. I've met everybody but him. He's the only one I've never interacted with him.
Yeah.
Oh man, you gotta.
I know. I'm
I've
sure
heard-
he doesn't even know who I am. He's gonna be like, who?
I've heard
Hey.
mixed reviews, but the one time I've as far as like meeting him in person, and but my interaction when he was in Hawaii was super cool. The ATM was
He's
broke.
in Hawaii. He better be super cool.
Yeah, no,
Right.
the ATM was broke, and I was like, does anybody here have Venmo? I went up to his handler. I'm like, I'll Venmo you right now. I need him to sign this box. And then he just comes over. He's like, what's going on? Ah, don't worry about it. Just come here. And I was like,
Good man.
oh,
Good.
Cool guy.
Yeah.
Hey, do you remember? So I could be talking out my ass right now. I've read a large portion of the stuff that you and also the stuff Kyle has written for Power Rangers, but I haven't read all of it. Did Ivan Ooze show up and I just didn't see it?
No, that's a rights
Okay.
issue. I think Fox owns the rights to that, and so it's not on the table. Yeah, it might be. It's complicated. It's one of those things where like there's a lot of lawyers that got to get on the phone to do that happen, and with comics, they're just like maybe they're just not going to do it for the comic. So I mean, maybe someday, but right now they're off the table, unfortunately.
Oh, that's disappointing.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Killing
boys and
dreams.
girls and guys. Yeah. All right. Cool.
so
Okay. Good to know.
would you like if you were able to use them? Do you have any? But because it's not on the table, you haven't even went down that road, huh? As far as
Like story ideas for Ivan Ooze?
Yeah.
No, I haven't. I think I asked about it really early on, and they were like, no, that's not available. And I was like, okay. There's a bunch of little things that like I know a lot of Ranger fans want that are just like, I know people want Beetleborgs and VR Troopers and Master Rider and stuff. That's just that it's complicated because there's like a whole rights thing that with the way that the footage all works. So it's really hard. So whenever anybody asks me, I'm always like, it's possible. It's just that it's above my pay grade.
Well, wait, hear me out. What if you made a character called Sergey Slime, who had just a lot of the same qualities by coincidence?
I think if I could get that would mean that would probably be my last issue of Power Rangers. I think they'd probably be like, that's it, man. You're dropping the mic on that one. Yeah.
So Super Sentai type the genre, right? I forget what it's called in Japanese, but like what do you think it makes that so popular? Like we're talking about like when I'm a kid and I'm old, like this thing and it's been before that, right? Taking over Japanese culture and then came over to the United States. And it's huge and it stays huge. What do you think is the appeal?
I think there's sort of two parts of that. Like the one part of it is like I think when it comes to like just from a storytelling point of view, like the idea that anybody can become a ranger, whether it's Sentai at all, like the idea that you can pick up something and then it sort of releases sort of the inner power inside of you. I think it's an easy story to write. It's something that I think we all associate with. I think we all hope secretly that we have that in us. And so there's sort of an aspirational stuff. And also the idea of there's a teamwork about it. There's the concept of you and your group of friends discovering superpowers and being able to protect the world. I think that's sort of like that's just human, that crosses cultures, and I think we all feel that way. And I saw that's why I think it's come over here and translated so well.
Yeah. Like a sword in the stone sort of deal.
Yeah,
Animorphs.
Exactly. Is that are you in Australia? They said.
Yeah.
So Matt loves Animorphs.
I fucking love Animorphs.
He loves Animorphs, and like I remember we were at like a dinner one night, and he pitched me the whole concept over. But it wasn't like the 10-minute version; it was like the whole dinner. And like,
I've done that to these boys for sure.
Yeah,
Yes,
but I was
indeed.
like, so maybe it's an Australian thing. I don't know. It's like that's very cool.
It was pretty popular over here. Yeah, when I was growing up in the 90s. Yeah, it was
Those
on
book covers,
public
though.
access.
The book of where they go from little and they like transform up.
That's the one.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah.
My passion is graphic design. So I need to ask you about your IMDb page because it's pretty impressive. You have credits for like Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol, and Super 8 and Star Trek Into Darkness. Like, did your time working in Hollywood inspire the way that you create comic books?
I mean, it definitely informed on it. Yeah. I mean, I think being working at Bad Robot for JJ for 2.5 years is a very nice place to be. Because I remember when I was there, like you can't ask for a busier place to be, which is bad when you're an assistant because you're just not getting a lot done. But creatively wise, but like one side of me, like, so where my desk was sitting there, if you go to the right, we had the TV department and we had 5 TV shows on the air. We had Fringe, we had Revolution, we had Person of Interest. We had, oh my gosh, what else? I can't remember. There was like 5 other shows on the air, right?
Fringe is like my top show.
Oh yeah. Fringe was awesome. Yeah. I wrote the first ever spec for that, by the way.
Stop.
Yeah. No,
I'm fangirling hard.
I got to see this. I got to see the first test screening of the pilot. And so I went, because I worked for Kathy Ling, who was the head of TV there. I was her nanny at the time, so I took care of her kids.
That's amazing.
I didn't even work for Bad Robot, and they brought us in for test screening, and I saw it, and I was like, "This is awesome! Like, I love this. This is X-Files meets, like with a crazy mad scientist." And I went home and wrote a spec, and I turned it in. And she's like, "I'm not gonna hire you. You work for you're taking care of my kids." And then they brought me in, and I got to meet the showrunners and stuff in the first season, and I asked them a whole bunch of story questions and stuff. It was really funny what they were, but anyways, that's my one side thing.
I am so jealous. That's amazing.
That's so dope.
That show was crazy. They did some nut stuff.
It's so great.
So I did that on one side, and then on the feature side, we had JJ was writing Star Trek 2, and we did Mission Impossible and all that stuff. So, and Super 8 was being done. I started working for them the day we started working on that movie. So like I had a lot of projects, and also there's so much going on there. It's a great place creatively to be because it makes you go, oh my gosh, this is the level I have to work at if I want to do that stuff. So some of my first comic books I got to do is because I had written Batman with Kyle just as a help him out because he had some other stuff. And Brian Burke, who was assistant there, was the second in command there for JJ, saw it, was like, hey, if you want to do comics, we do Star Trek comics if you're interested. And I love Star Trek. So I was like, yeah. And that's how I got into comics. So
that's so awesome.
It not necessarily just informed in the sense that like being around JJ, he's a very, very smart, very sweet guy. One of the nicest people you ever work for. I'll never say a bad thing about him. He taught me a lot just being around him because he's just instinctively knows stuff. And I think I try to write with a lot of stuff that I learned from him. So yeah.
That's rad. Yep.
That's awesome. So Ryan, I'm going to give you a very rare special opportunity now. You have the chance right now to drop a news bombshell that nobody's ever heard before. You can tell us right now if you have any secret projects that you'd like to reveal that are coming down the pipeline. Do you have anything? Do you have anything for that?
Do I have anything for that?
Everyone always does. I wouldn't be the first to know.
Everybody, before we break it, you're the Adrian Wojnarowski of the comic book world. All right. Yeah. I don't have anything, like I'm trying to figure out if I can give you something. No, I'll get in trouble, man.
I'll be honest. Everybody, I'll be honest. Everybody always says that.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
I'll be very cryptic. Here's the thing. Here's what I'll do. I'll be very cryptic right now. I'll tell you something, and then when it's announced, I'll come back and we'll talk about it.
Sweet.
So something that I'm very, very passionate about. I got some very, very good news about, and so that is going to come down the line, but I don't know when. And when that comes, when I announce when that happens, I will come on and tell you about that, and that should be soonish. So
the Fringe reboot, you heard it here
first. Yes. Awesome.
That's dope. That's dope.
Cool.
Ladies, gentlemen, and MBs, that is the end of our show. Ryan Parrott, thank you so much for joining us and giving us some of your time.
Thank you.
Make sure everybody goes out and checks out Rogue Sun. We didn't ask.
And Supermassive.
And Supermassive. We'll make sure the links are in the description. Ryan Parrott, before we let you go, where can people find you? You got your own website or any of that?
You can find me. I'm only on Twitter right now at that Ryan Parrott, 2 R's and 2 T's. If you want to know more about Rogue Sun and anything in the Massive Universe, check out Black Market. I think it's blackmarket.com, blackmarketnarrative.com. That's Kyle's website. So that'll have links to places you can buy the comics immediately and learn all about what we're doing.
Awesome. All right.
Nice.
Awesome.
Make sure everybody goes and gets vaccinated, get your booster, wash your hands, and that's it. We are